As we heard this morning, biodiversity is lagging behind on public attention compared to climate change. So maybe this session is quite interesting because it's communicating ocean biodiversity. And we have 3 presentations that do communicating ocean diversity in 3 different ways. So I would like to introduce each of them by order of that we have here in the program. So first of all, we have Jean-Marc Fromentin, who is a researcher from Ifremer and is really working on IPBES and other initiatives on working on policy and communicating the issue of ocean biodiversity. So if you want to use another one, or you can use this one. Yeah, also, is it fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ángel. Hi, everyone. So thanks to the organizer for the invitation. And I'm going to, so they asked me that I speak to you about some kind of presentation and communication I used to do about 2 different topics. One historical one about bluefin tuna, and the other one about IPBES. And how actually, as a researcher, we can lead to communicate around what we are doing. It's not always very easy because we don't have any training. So we have to manage by ourselves, more or less. We have a bit of help, but we don't have any training. So I'm going to present you the kind of thing I used to present and to communicate to the different media about bluefin tuna and the crisis of bluefin tuna, and recently about IPBES. So the first, let's start with Atlantic bluefin tuna. I will try to stay within 20 or not to be too long, 20 minutes or more. So what is it? This is a fisheries, and this is a fisheries about a big fish. Bluefin tuna is about 3 meters long when it's an adult, about at 500 kilos, sometimes about 1 ton. So a huge fish that is fished around the Mediterranean since the antiquity. So it's a long-term fisheries that has been sustainable during 2 millennia, and that's start to be overexploited in the 80s. Here on this picture, you can see some old picture about a bluefin tuna fisheries in south of Spain. You can see Cadix just at the bottom of the figure. And you can see that it was already, at that time, a huge fisheries. It was not a small fisheries. And this fisheries becoming overexploited for 3 main reasons. The first one, it was first a low market value because it was mostly for canning, a bit of fresh around the med, but it was mostly for canning. And with the rising of the Japanese sashimi market, it becoming very valuable. And there was a strong increase in the demand, especially abroad in Japan, and so that it becoming really a gold rush for these fisheries. And you can see that at the Tokyo market, there is some auction every year in January, and a single fish can be fished about 3 million euro for 1 fish. So you can see really it's really something very prestigious and very high value. So that was the first thing. And when you have high value like that, so it's a kind of gold rush, everybody wants to fish this fish, and we've got a huge overcapacity. So what we call overcapacity is just a huge number of boats trying to target this fish. And in the Med in 2005, you can see that it was almost 2,000 fishing boats targeting bluefin tuna in the Med. So, and you can see that some of these boats are not small. It's quite a large boat. So, and there was an increasing spatial expansion of the fisheries, because a lot of money in these fisheries, some technological development, such as this net pen and reefer and this kind of thing. So that's increased quite a lot of the over-exploitation of this fish. And the 3 last main reasons for this over-exploitation was the fact that this fisheries was shared by many different countries. About 20 countries used to fish and target this population. You can see the 3 main players were European, France, Spain, and Italy. And then you can see Japan, United States, Morocco, and all the Mediterranean countries mostly. And so when you have a highly shared resources like that shared by many countries, you have always some conflict of interest between the country. And as we know, the governance of at international level is always very difficult. So this international governance was done by ICCAT. It was an fisheries body, international bodies. And this international body was unable to take really action about the management of these fisheries before 2000. But its scientific body, to which we belong as a researcher, make a diagnosis of overexploitation in 1996. And there was an implementation of quota at the end of the century, but without any control. So that means that when you put some management action without any control, that doesn't change anything. And then you have illegal fishing that was rising at that time. And then the catch was really super high, about 50,000 tons during the 90s and 2000s, while at the same time the scientists were saying that the quota shouldn't exceed 30,000 tons and even 25,000 tons. So that means that the scientific recommendations were not followed. And the reason for the decision maker and the stakeholders to not follow the scientific advice was that there were uncertainty in the scientific advice. But it was mostly an excuse in order to play with that, to say, you are not so sure about what you are telling us, so let's continue the business as usual. And so business as usual, that means that the economic interests were in front before the conservation interest. And so in 2006-8, the scientific advice say, now it's becoming a severe overexploitation and there is a risk of collapse. And at that time, when we said that, the NGOs that were quite active, and environmental NGOs mostly, they becoming very active, and they use their communication tools that you know, I guess, very well. And they have some very performant and communication tool, and they were really able to change the public opinion. The public opinion at the beginning were really in favor of the fishermen. And after this campaign that all these NGOs has done, the public opinion changed completely, and they were really on the conservation side. And then when the public opinion changed, most of the time the politicians change, and the stakeholders start to take action and to build a rebuilding plan in 2009 that include a lot of things like change the fishing season, a lot of control, try to decrease also the capacity or the world capacity, so to remove some fishing fleet from the different countries, and to have at least a reduction of the total TAC, so quota. So that, and all these measures led to a decrease of the illegal fishing. And as you may see on this graph, that is the population size mostly. There is a rapid response of the fishing population, and the fish now is not overfished anymore. So that's a nice story. It's a good ecological news. We don't have so many, so when we have some, we should take it. But you can really see that no, I'm going to say that later. So, but before to say that when there is some political will, we have some result, I would say that there is still uncertainty in the scientific advice because of many reasons. We don't have perfect data, and for some fisheries, especially in some Mediterranean countries, we don't have a lot of data, or for some of them, we don't have data at all. So that creates uncertainties. It's difficult to track the change in stock size of this fish because these fish go from Turkey to Gulf of Mexico and from Greenland to South Africa mostly. So it's a huge geographical distribution. So to follow all that is quite difficult. And we lack of knowledge, but we have some lack of knowledge on everything most of the time. But on some key biological and ecological points, so we are working on that in order to progress. But still, so I think I must say that from a scientific point of view, for me, the most difficult part for communicating the result to the media was that, to try to explain to the media and then to the public opinion what we mean by uncertainty, because it's really difficult. Because people say, but it's overfish or it's not overfish? Yeah, we are quite sure, but 95% that is overfish. Yeah, but we are not sure. Yes, well, 95%. But then we have to explain what is probability, and then it's becoming a mess. So it's difficult to really to communicate this kind of scientific knowledge, because but it's part of our job. For me, that was possibly the most difficult part, to communicate that. But still, so what I would say that despite of uncertainties, overexploitation of high-value species like bluefin tuna can be stopped when there is a real political will. That's the first thing. But you have to create this political will, and thanks to the NGOs, because otherwise it wouldn't have been possible. But this political will should be over the long term, and that's really a point. Now, after 10 years of good practice and sustainable fishing, it seems that ICAT start to restart again, to have very high quota, and possibly quota that is maybe not so much sustainable. So we can see that it's again the same. We have to be careful all the time. So I hope that the NGO will be still very active in order to call the public opinion on these spaces again. Scientific monitoring is costly, but it's necessary to reduce the uncertainties. This is a high-value fishery, so it will be very simple to get a good monitoring. It should be, we make an estimation, 2% of the value of the fisheries could be sufficient in order to cover a good monitoring of this species. So it's costly, but it can be done. But as soon as you have uncertainty, you should be very precautionary in your scientific advice. That's the point. So civil society was key in the fact to really break this vicious circle about overexploitation, and to say that there is no fatality to overexploitation. We can change it. So that's that's the first story I used to tell to talk to the media. And the more recent story, 10 minutes, so not so bad. The second story is about IBES. It's something that I've done recently. Yunne, Shin, that was also working on IBES, but on another assessment. So we have quite a few actually in Marbeck to work on this IBES thing. So what is IBES? Mostly IBES is IPCC of biodiversity. So it's an intergovernmental body that is really at the interface between policy and science, but on the question of biodiversity and ecosystem services, mostly. So it's much more recent than IPCC. It has been established just 10 years ago, and Secretariat is based in Bonn in Germany. And what IBES do mostly is main activity. It's not the only one, but the main activity is really to produce some assessment report on some specific topic of biodiversity. And the first one that has been released in 2016 was about pollinators and pollination, about food production. But I'm not talking about that, as you may imagine, but I'm talking about this assessment that we have published just this year, this July, about the sustainable use of wild species. So that was the aim about that was really to document the status and trend about all type of use of wild species worldwide. So it's not only about fishing, but also about hunting, about gathering, logging, and wildlife tourism. So, and this kind of report that we do as scientists is not for us. It's not to publish something for scientists, but to publish some reports for stakeholders. So we should provide something that is policy-oriented and solution-oriented in order to try to say what would be the main solution to enhance sustainable use of wild species. And to do that, IBES gather a multidisciplinary team of, we were 85 lead authors in this, from natural and social science, coming from 37 different countries. And so what are the main results of that? The first main result is really to try to stress that the use of wild species is critical for people and nature, and much more than what we usually think about. Today, still 50,000 wild species that are under use. Among them is about 30,000 about plants. So just So the bulk of the wild species are plants. And they are used not only for food, but also for energy, medicine, material, education, recreation, many things. And about that, 10,000 are used for human food. That's making sustainable use of wild species very critical for food security in all parts of the world, especially in developing countries. 1 in 5 people rely on wild species for income and food, so it's quite a lot of people. And more than 2 billion people depend on fuel wood for cooking. We just realized that actually when we are doing this assessment that it's still more than 1 billion of people worldwide that are without any electricity or any source of energy like that. So we don't realize that from Europe, but in some other countries it's not the same thing. It's critical also for people and nature, for indigenous people and local communities, for their identity, for their culture, their economy, their language, everything. So we can see that actually sustainable use is really a strong contribution to the SDG and all the SDG, not only 5 minutes, yes, not only SDG 1 and 2, but also different kind of SDG. And it's critical for people, but it's also critical for nature. Firstly, because use of wild species is one of the main causes of the decline of biodiversity through unsustainable use or overexploitation. And also because some management system related to the use of wild species can provide also some good return to biodiversity. I'm not going to go into the detail about that. What are the status and trends? Mostly, it's not a surprise, the use of wild species is increasing everywhere in the world. This is this column, there, this one. You can see that for most of the practices, it's increasing. And but the sustainability of this use is variable. It depends on the social and ecological context in which it occurs. So, for instance, if we take the example of fishing, because we are still about marine there, for instance, we know that about, if we take the stock worldwide, we know that about 34% of the stock worldwide are still overfished. But when you look at that, it really depends on the region and the country. In the country or the region with strong management, the fisheries are not such in bad state. But in the country where you don't have any management, they are in bad state. Small-scale fisheries are mostly, unfortunately, unsustainable in most countries, and because of the social ecological context that have changed recently. But when you have participation of local and indigenous community that is still there, sustainability can be maintained. And if you have some question, I could talk about this very nice example about Pirarucu freshwater fishing in Amazon basin. That was really a nice example about a fishery that has been sustainable during centuries, that has become unsustainable because on a national market that was opening, and that become again sustainable due to the involvement of the specific community. And one of the main issues worldwide about fishing is and unsustainable fishing is due to the bycatch of certain and protected species that is still unsustainable, especially for sharks, ray, turtles, seabirds, and some marine mammals. Not so much in Europe, but in some other part of the world. But still in Europe, we have some problem. The driver of unsustainable use of wild species are different kinds. There is not one, but there are many. They can be environmental or social, economics, and they interact between each other. Among the environmental drivers, climate change, pollution, invasive species are the main one. That is, they can act on the practice or on the species. Global and illegal trade are really key source of unsustainability. We have to remember that illegal trade of wild species is the third class of illegal trade in all the world, just after drugs and arms. So it's a huge market. But there are some mitigating factors in order to try to avoid this, to mitigate this negative impact from this driver that exists. I'm running a bit. I'm still have two. Yeah. And so we know that the use of wild species is facing major and present challenge, major present and future challenge. But if it's difficult to ensure sustainability of use, it's not impossible. And we try to, in this report, we identify the main policy action that supports sustainable use everywhere in the world. And it has this one, participatory mechanism, multiple form of knowledge, equitable distribution of costs and benefits. It's really something that we don't have so much in fisheries, for instance. To have policies that are context-specific. There is not one given policy that is going to work everywhere. It doesn't exist. Monitoring is crucial, and to have robust institutions, it's also crucial. So what are the expected impact of that? Is to provide best available information to decision makers. So we were in Bonn trying to communicate our result to the whole stakeholders from about 100 different countries. And it's quite, it's not that easy actually, because it's a bit of fight with some country with some political agenda in their head. We are going to contribute to the Convention of the Biological Diversity, the COP15, that is going to be next week actually in Montreal, and contributing to the goal of CITES and to support implementation of the SDG. And that's it, Ángel.
Thank you very much. I can allow a question if somebody was like somebody would like to ask something to Jean-Marc.
Jean-Marc, you said that with your experience on bluefin tuna, one of the difficult things to explain to policymakers or stakeholders was uncertainty in science. But when you worked as a co-chair of this IBES report, you had to coordinate with authors of many different chapters. So did you ask these scientists to simplify their message about uncertainty on your side, or how did you deal with the uncertainty of the other studies for your report? Because you needed something very simple for the policymakers. So you had this position to make it simple. What did you do with the other scientists?
That was a problem that was raised, I think, by IPCC first, and then IBES decided to have a kind of template in order to qualify your advice according to 4 different levels of certainty. And depending on the number of because all these reports are based on literature review. So for this report, we look at 6,200 different references, and we've got 3 workshops with ILK people, and we have some report of that. And based on the number of the reference that you have in order to support your statement, and the agreement between the different references that you have, you can say it is certain, uncertain, established. I don't remember it. Well established with strong confidence, well established but not strong confidence, a lot of uncertainties, or not established, something like that. Yeah, so there is a kind of matrix on these 2. And so for each statement that we give in the report, we have to give the confidence level that we have to this statement. And according to that, we can give an idea. So that's a nice thing that IBES has done for that.
Thank you very much, Jean-Marc. So maybe also go into the next presentation. We heard on communicating on research and science also for policy and management. And now we'll hear from Shin. She's also a researcher from IRD, but also she's also the half of one of the laureates of the Embracing the Ocean program that Gilles presented this morning. So yeah, she will present us a little bit the outcomes of that collaboration with art, because I haven't said at the beginning that we are traveling from pure science to pure art. So she represents really well this kind of like a science arts interface. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you today. Well, we should have been two of us. So unfortunately, Émilie Lartillot, a dance choreographer in Montpellier, was not able to come. Well, first, she doesn't speak English, but she's above all giving classes, dance classes in Montpellier at the moment, at her school, Les Arts en Scène. And I am so lucky to share a true adventure with this talented artist since 2019. I must precise as well that Émilie has been awarded by Embracing the Ocean, which is an artist in residence program of the European Marine Board. And she and I created so 3 years ago a children dance company called Steps for a Change. And so why Steps for a Change, which is a kind of awkward name for a dance company? So I've been working, as Jean-Marc said, I've been working as an expert for the IBES Global Assessment of Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And this landmark report provides extensive evidence for the urgency of action. It shows that nature and its benefits need a political and civic surge, a major change in our modes of development, a step change. So from this need arose the idea of the project Steps for a Change, a creation at the crossroads of science and dance, the steps, and policy, which could spur the step change that the world needs. So the Steps for a Change company brings together 15 dancers. They are all children aged between 8 and 16. And they performed for the first time before the 7th IBES plenary in Paris in 2019, and it was in front of about 500 to 600 governmental delegates, NGOs, various stakeholders, and scientists. And it was just for the opening, just before the negotiations, hard negotiations on the Global Assessment Report. And they were invited again in 2020, just before the pandemic, for the IPCC plenary this time. IPCC for climate change. Well, I think everybody knows IPCC here. So the young dancers here in our company symbolize the future generations that are most at risk, but they also carry hope. And also for us, these children talk to their own generation. So future adults who do not all have this environmental awareness. So the objective of the dance performances that we create is to impact spirits with the beauty of bodies and souls, to inject into the heart of scientific and political discussions a strong artistic and emotional dimension. So artistic expression is used as a powerful lever to relay and support the scientific messages. So today I'm very excited to let you know that Émilie Lartillot and I have put on together a new dance creation. So it was a performance that happened last week in UNESCO in Paris, so it's all very fresh. We're all very exhausted about this, but I'm very excited to present it to you. And it was in the frame of the University of the Earth with a various assembly of many different stakeholders from the private sector, from the policy, journalists, but also scientists, but also philosophers, but also big private groups like Bouygues. I think French people know Bouygues in the building sector, etc. So it was interesting to gather all these people together, discuss about environmental issues. So we opened this University of the Earth. The creation called Of Roots and Sea featured global change impacts on the ocean, focusing on mangroves as emblematic ecosystems at the interface between land, sea, and sky. So these are exceptional ecosystems really at the frontiers of many challenges. Mangroves are major ecosystems, not only for the high biodiversity they harbor, but also for mitigation of and adaptation to climate change. We also chose mangroves because of their huge scenic potential, and the choreography plays with all the contrasts between the thickness of the sediments that anchor the roots of the mangroves, but also the fluidity of the water, but also rising and falling tides. So I'll stop here because I will let you watch this video, which is first. It is not the final version of the video, but still it's good enough to make you watch these children dance, and because this video is worth 1,000 words from myself. Thank you. So now I'll try to launch it.
Thank you very much, Yunne. That was amazing. Thank you, and thank you for letting us show you what we missed last weekend. Maybe if somebody has a question for Yunne.
I'm wondering about your creative process, the giving from the scientist, the receiving sort of from the artist, and like maybe the iterative process that I'm imagining. How does that work? Like, how much does the scientist start with, or where does this project sort of move out from when you're co-creating?
Okay, so the encounter that between Émilie Lartiot and myself wouldn't have worked, honestly. So it's just my personal case. If I didn't have any dance experience before, and if Émilie Lartiot had such big concerns about environmental issues and the health of our planet, so, and the transmission to children. So I don't know if it would happen the same if we didn't have this common discussion made possible.
And a common understanding and platforms from the beginning.
And so, and also I must say that Émilie, in the way she works, does a lot of research. So she's always keen of documenting herself and very keen to listen to different things I can tell about the ocean, etc. So all these scenes are built together. I had something in my mind that I wanted to stress out: oxygen, respiration, or the interface also between the wilderness and the cities. This kind of thing that happened in Asia at the moment, with the restoration of mangroves in the middle of mega cities. This kind of thing. So yeah, so we discussed together, and things have a potential visually or scenically or in the dance. So that's really an iterative process. And I wouldn't say iterative process, but we discuss. We do all the things together, despite the fact that we have all our specialties.
Thank you very much. And maybe I will give the floor to move into pure art. So to Françoise Dagon. She's a painter, and maybe she will explain a little bit more about herself.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Yunne, for sharing with us this fantastic moment. And first, I would like to thank all the organizers for inviting me to this conference. And it's my first conference, and it's in English, so you can imagine the challenge for me. But I'm really honored to be here and to communicate about marine biodiversity with you and with art. So I am Françoise Dagon. I'm a painter, and I would like to share with you all my painting and why I am inspired by the ocean. So first, why do I paint? I spent 20 years in tropical islands, and I really enjoy my life there, and I love the colors, the fish colors, and all the moment in this life. And when I came back in France 10 years ago, I really wanted to share all my moments and all these fantastic colors. Then I started to paint. It was for me something that I wanted to share and to sorry, I'm lost. So when I started to paint, you can see with this painting, Temana Honu, that I'm using the blue colors, and even with the animal. And Temana Honu means in Tahitian the spirit of the sea turtle. And this the sea turtle in Polynesian culture, it means a lot. It's the link between the ocean and the land. And for the Polynesian, it's a strong message. So when I'm painting, I also want to share a strong message. So it's for me the opportunity to raise awareness about the protection of marine biodiversity. And always I am introducing the nice color, the highlights, to introduce the animal, but always to talk about something that it's important for me. For example, the sharks. It's a little bit difficult, the relationship between humans and sharks, and I always want to introduce my paintings and to give a strong message. But how can I improve the impact of my work? And so I have, because it's the subject of today, communicate about biodiversity, marine biodiversity in my case. So I can show you an example. I have been invited by Live Together. It's an association, and I was during the Festival of Television of Monte Carlo. I was invited to present my work and to share with other artists my work. So I could be with the other artists. You can see photographs, so professional photograph. It was the opportunity also to present a movie that they make during the campaign at sea. So this movie is Souffle de Vie. So you could reach people who are interested by the films, the videos, and you can see a book. So people from artists, writers. So I think it was a good challenge and a good opportunity to reach a big audience, because we could share 4 different kind of arts: paintings, photograph, video, and books. So I think it's a very nice opportunity to share with the big audience. So I will quickly present you my 3 art series. My first one is the biodiversity. So this one, you can see this painting, it's diving to a better world. It's the series very simple, sober, and pure background, because in this series I really want to present the animal. So because it's the main subject in this series, I want you to see and to what I want to see. And then after, you can see the second series. It's the 7th continent. It's talking about the pollution, plastic pollution. And you can see in this triptych, the name is If Nothing Is Done, It Will Be Too Late. You see the shape of the fish on the left. And so you see there is pollution. So I'm trying to give the attention with the pollution, but it's aesthetic, and you can still see the blue. In the middle, you don't see anymore the shape, but you see the eyes and the mouth. So you realize that it's a little bit difficult for the fish. So still, if nothing is done, it will be too late. And the last one, you realize that it's finished, so it's too late. So I don't want to give a bad message or a negative message, but it's only, but what I want to say, it's, this is now, and if we don't do anything, it will be too late, but it's already, okay, we can realize that right now, so it's never going to be like that. And even if we want, we can move all the triptych, and you can start with the right one, you put it in the left, and you change our behavior, and it will be maybe the good message and positive message. So, and the last series, the more recent series, it's a marine charts series, and in the I can present you the Free Wally. Free Wally, it's I use the marine charts because I like to imagine, to travel in my mind. So, but in the case of this painting, I wanted to share with you the true story of Wally. This happened in April and May 2021. And Wally came in the Mediterranean Sea because it's a gray whale, young gray whale, and he came from the Arctic, he came in the Atlantic, and he lost his way in the Mediterranean Sea, and he tried to go out again, but it was difficult for him to find the exit of the Mediterranean Sea. And then what I'm trying to do is to give the message, to take the conscience that if we do something, and it's about global warming, of course, if you tear up the map, and then you open the Gibraltar Strait, you can see that my message is a positive one, to give the opportunity to this Wally who couldn't go out to find a way to go back to Pacific. And then I want to give this message that what we can do to impact and to change the global warming. So that's the idea on this painting, and always I'm trying to give a message with all my paintings, but okay. So thank you. If you want to see others, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions to Françoise?
First of all, thank you. They're really beautiful pieces of
Thank
artwork.
you.
What's next? What's your next series? Do you know already?
Sorry, my next series? Yes. I have something in my mind, yes. I'm thinking about to make something with, I think, publication and scientist publication and my marine animals. So I have an idea already.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation. Just wondering if you interact usually with scientists, marine scientists, outside of this event, obviously.
Just a little bit. Okay, I have to explain it. My husband is Laurent Dagorn, so that's why I'm really sensitive to this subject.
Thank you, Françoise. It was very beautiful, your work. I would like to know more about the material you use for your paintings.
Oh, sure.
Yes,
of course.
Please.
When I'm doing the marine animals, I'm using painting knives, usually. And even for the pollution plastic, I'm using painting knives. And after, I'm using brush paintings, or painting brush, to make the background and to make the small details like the eyes and all the small details.
And the sort of paintings, the quality, is it acrylic or
that's the
oil?
bad thing in my story. I'm using acrylic painting, but I'm really trying to change the painting.
Okay, but they are very
It's not so
beautiful.
easy at first.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other question?
How long does it take you to find this blue color? It went like this when you mix it, or combien de temps pour arriver à avoir ce bleu qui est...
Okay. It's a different kind of blue. It's not only one blue, and I'm mixing all the colors, and I'm trying to make the best highlight I can with.
But it's a success.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I would like to thank all three of you for showing different ways of how we can communicate ocean biodiversity. Also for the people online, I forgot to say that, hopefully you were here. So hopefully next time you will be able to travel to wherever it is. Just also some practical information that also the people online doesn't need to hear that. But I will give the floor then maybe to Pierre-François so they can explain a little bit more what will happen afterwards. So, but first of all, maybe thank you to all of three of you, Jean-Marc, Yunne, and François. Please, round of applause. Thank you.